We are live. Hi, folks. I can already see the attendee count going up, so let's start. We have a very interestingly titled webinar today. It is Circular Economy, Reality or Dream, where the expert panel will discuss if the circular economy is becoming a reality or if it's still a pipe dream. We have Adam Reed, who picked the title, the Chief Sustainability and External Affairs Officer at Suez UK. He is moderating today's webinar. Also from UK, we have David Greenfield, Vice President of Circular Economy Institute. We have Kalia Hall, who's a sustainability manager at Esserum Foundation from Jamaica, and Danny McLetchie, who's a co-founder of CarneCycle. Both Kalia and Danny will provide a perspective from the Caribbean today. And for the attendees, please use the Q&A section for your questions. Use chat to introduce yourselves, or if you want to interact with other attendees. And yes, over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Sweta. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are right now. We are live. It's been a long day, so I'm going to keep this upbeat. As Sweta said, Dr. Adam Reed, I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Suez here in the UK. Used to be an international consultant for my sins, which meant I saw all sorts of projects back in the 90s and noughties looking at circularity, recycling, and just general greater sustainability in places that I can't even pronounce these days. But I'm interested in hearing from my colleagues from the Caribbean to see just what kind of progress is being made. And at the same time, I'm going to challenge my good friend David about what progress we're making here in the UK as circularity starts to build political momentum. So I'm going to, I guess I'm going to start with Danny, I think, because she's got the best backdrop, but it looks like she's in carnival mode with that beautiful screen there. But before I do, I think this is such a broad topic. Thank you for joining. Please say hello, drop your details in the box. You know, you're going to make some new friends and possibly you're going to get some inspiration to go and do something different, which would be great. But I think circularity is a huge topic, and I don't want to steal the thunder of any of my panelists. But you know, where do we draw the boundaries? You know, are we going to talk about recycling today? Maybe, but we've also got to talk about prevention, and we've got to talk about design. And I'm a huge fan of systemic change, and the idea that the only way that you can truly move to a resource efficient future is one where you design stuff so that it can be disassembled, refurbished, repaired, upgraded, upcycled, whatever phrase you like. But it has to have multiple outcomes, multiple secondary lives. And I think it doesn't seem to matter where I work in the world. That just doesn't happen very often. And what you find is you've got loads of creative people that are trying to make a circular loop out of a linear model. And that's a highly inefficient way of doing it. So I'm looking forward to sort of hearing what, you know, some of the progress that we're making, whether it be at community level or with business or even with government, to kind of get over some of these barriers and boundaries that we've got and achieve the art of the possible. So good to see people joining. Well done. Keep chatting away. So coming in, Danny, you're up first. What's hot and what's not in your part of the world, the Caribbean? I bet it's warmer than it is here in the UK right now.
The Caribbean is warm all year, and hopefully, if climate change, the solutions that will be presented today that will mitigate climate change, we can stay warm instead of cold. Am I able to present? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should be able to.
Nice. Okay. Great, great, great. Seeing me full screen here? So I'm running through this quick. My name is Danny McCletchie. Can everyone hear me? Great.
Yeah.
Good morning. So my name is Danny McCletchie. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm a senior sustainability engineer at a sugar refinery, and I'm also the CEO and co-founder of CarneCycle. CarneCycle's mission is to make Carnival sustainable, and we will focus on making Carnival sustainable in multiple ways that I'll run through today. So just really we'll talk about who am I, what does CarneCycle do, and our impact in making Caribbean carnivals more sustainable. Here you see me here in Tobago Carnival recycling costumes on the road, on the go. So my Carnival love story, I'm not sure how many of the audience is familiar with Carnival, but Carnival is an annual celebration that many of the Caribbean countries participate in, and the diaspora. So we have Carnival also in the UK, in Berlin. Um, as well. Notting Hill Carnival is huge. Then we have, non-Caribbean carnivals like Brazil Carnival, and then some in North America, like such as Toronto Carnival and Miami Carnival. And I've played in many of them. So I started playing them as young as 13. And playing means going into the carnivals and participating, purchasing or making my own costume and having fun in the festivities. Um, so Carnival has been very important to me, also in my family as well. My mom has been playing for over 20 years, so she plays more than me. And, you know, I wanted to form a environmental business with my co-founder. And as we were going through different business plans, Carnival really popped into my head. And when Carnival popped into my head, I asked the question, where did my costumes go? I've been participating in Carnival for all of these years, but I have no idea where a single one of the costumes I've either purchased or produced went. And so, after doing a survey with over 150 participants of people who also participate in costumes, I figured out the costumes are going in the trash. They're going on the floor, they're just being discarded. Um, these costumes are a labor of love. They take multiple hours to produce, and the only way you can get these costumes is by purchasing $1,000 US ticket in the case of Trinidad Carnival, right? Other islands they have different price points, and the costume purchase, covers all of the music, the amenities that you get with the experience. But when you take away the costume, it's the only tangible thing left. So when people throw away the costume, it feels like they're throwing away $1,000, although they've had the experience. From there, I realized the environmental business that I wanted to tackle was making Carnival sustainable. So what we do is we make Carnival sustainable through education. So we go and educate both schools, corporations, as well as stakeholders in the carnival industry that are responsible for putting on the carnival on how to make carnival more sustainable. We also facilitate waste management through our flagship program, costume recycling. Once we recycle the costumes, we have a resale program, and then we also rent costumes as well, which, adds to the circular economy. And lastly, we consult. So costume recycling, once I realized my costumes were thrown away and many other costume pieces were thrown away, the go thing the thing that just lit in my head was, oh, why don't we recycle it? So although I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, my first instance of costume recycling actually happened for Jamaica Carnival, which my colleague is from. So we went to Jamaica Carnival and we collected 28 pieces of costumes in 2019. We did that a couple times throughout the Caribbean region. And then 2020 for Trinidad Carnival, the Mecca of carnivals, we collected around 250 carnival pieces. And so within just a little under a year, we were able to significantly increase our collection. And then COVID happened. So there was no carnivals for about 3 years. In 2023, when carnivals reemerged, we continued our program and we not just collected costumes that people use, but we started collecting dead stock costumes. So a lot of the costume producers, we call them mass bands, would produce costumes in excess that people did not purchase or that just did not fit. And then they would just simply throw away these costumes because of lack of storage space. So we then started to collect those as well. As of 2024, you'll see the impact numbers. We've collected over 10,000 costume pieces through this program. And not only do we collect the costumes, we process them so that the pieces are actually usable for designers or people like myself who participate in the carnival. So we kind of take practices from traditional recycling industries, thinking like recycling a water bottle or such. So we have to collect the costumes somehow. And we do that through working with carnival stakeholders to collect costumes that are thrown away in the streets the day of the parade. But then we also work with the tourism industry, so hotels that are hosting people who are flying in to participate in carnival, or local businesses such as coffee shops, or local schools such as University of West Indies to host collection bins throughout those locations. So like the week after carnival, people can come and recycle their costumes. We also have a permanent place year round where people can recycle costumes. Um, that if they're cleaning out their closets or something. So that is really awesome for us to have. Once we collect the costumes, we go through sorting them by color, by condition, etc. And then we go through a cleaning process where we sanitize them and clean them of excess glue and debris. And then after, we are able to sell them back to designers, back to creatives, and back to people in the carnival industry, really, and people outside the carnival industry at a reduced rate. Additionally, we rent backpacks. This is something we did. This is the first program of its kind, because we realized that after maybe 2 or 3 hours of the parade, after people took their pictures in these beautiful backpacks, which are these feathered pieces you see people wearing, they just dumped them on the floor because they really wanted to purchase them for the pictures. So we introduced a backpack rental program that has actually been growing really strong, so that people can rent backpacks from us at a reduced cost, and they're able to take their pictures but then give the backpacks back. So we're extending the life cycle of this piece of costume. And then lastly, consulting designers in the industry to make sure that we're trying to introduce sustainability throughout the design process. So working with designers to um, change the types of materials that are in their design. So from less polyester, plastic-based fabrics to more dead stock or organic fibers is what we do in our consulting process. And then also working with them to plan for take back programs. Again, trying to incorporate circularity into the design process that never existed before. We worked with a new designer called Wear Kara, and they made costumes for the first time, and they wanted to add a sustainability lens. And what we were able to do was replace 2 of her 5 designs for the carnival season with completely dead stock fabric from large fabric producers. And not only was this a more sustainable swap, we were able to save her 15 US per yard of fabric for her production. So there had cost savings. And the last thing is to keep this fun. There are so many aspects of waste in carnival. So, as each year we notice, okay, there are branded content in carnival that is unique to that specific year that we know that are just going to be thrown in the trash. So on your left, you will see banners that are like on a music truck. These are trucks that, produce music throughout the carnival parade. And, usually they're branded with the theme of that year and thrown away. What we did is we took it and worked with a local seamstress to create banners, totes out of these banners. And they're reusable, and, you're able to take them to the beach or whatever. So again, just reusing things that are typically being thrown away into something that is value added. So our impact, through our different pillars in Carnicycle, we've trained women, new upcoming designers on how to incorporate sustainability practices into their design. Also have educated over 148 students. We've recycled over 10,000 costume pieces. And since our backpack rental program in 2023, we've rented 202 backpacks. And job creation, which I really didn't touch on, is we've created over 25 seasonal gigs. So we hire people to transport the costumes, we hire people to collect them, we hire people to break them down, clean them, and we're hoping to translate these seasonal jobs to full-time jobs as the initiative grows, as our company grows. And it's our hope that recycling is an economic booster to Carnival. And then lastly, accessibility. So, the competitors' virgin material, especially in the Caribbean, we're importing everything from China, whether we create the costumes ourselves or outsource them to Chinese manufacturers. The material actually in Carnival is expensive. So, feathers are about 60 to 80 TTD, which translates to about around 9 to 11 US dollars. And through our program, we're able to sell everything for about a third of the cost. So that, gives more accessibility to people who are designing for the first time, people who are also using the costume pieces for art projects, for school projects, or for their own business to purchase these materials, um, give them a second life, and also at a lower price point. So yeah, that is Carna Cycle. Our goal moving forward is to create a full costume LCA. So we're actually analyzing the greenhouse gases associated with the costume production process. We want to create a reusable backpack so we could extend the life cycle even further from our rental program. And we want to launch our first full carnival recycling facility. So thank you for learning about us. And yeah, I'll pass it back on to
Thank-
Adam.
Thanks, Danny. That's fascinating. I mean, I used to work at the Notting Hill Carnival, so I've seen this kind of stuff up front back in the 90s, a long time ago. And I think this is fantastic sort of progress. And you're not only doing some recycling, there's some repurposing, you've got a bit of redesign in there. I'm loving that you're embedding this in the culture, which is really fantastic. Quick shout out, audience. It's the most multicultural, geographical audience I've seen in a long time, Sweater. Literally everywhere and everybody's on this one. So this is really cool. I'm going to move straight on to Kalia to give us a bit of insight from her perspective. And then David and I can do some reflections because this has certainly stimulated my mind. And I'm hoping the audience will start firing some questions in too. But Kalia, the floor's yours.
Hi, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla. I'm from Jamaica and I work with an environmental nonprofit called Esiram Foundation Limited. I actually used to live in the UK. I studied in Manchester at the University of Manchester for 4 years. So I don't miss the cold at all. I can say that. I don't know what the temperature is like right now. But again, Danny said it's very warm where I am now. So we do work in a lot of different areas. Two main areas are education, public awareness, and plastic recovery, specifically on Kingston Harbor, which is Jamaica's largest natural harbor and the seventh largest natural harbor in the world. Yeah, Jamaica has, a lot. We're known for a lot of things, but some people may not have known that. So we basically built a pontoon, a wooden pontoon made from marine ply. And we worked with fishermen, local fishermen, and we take this pontoon out onto Kingston Harbor to collect, I would say in a 2 hour period, we collect 2 tons of waste from the water alone. So a lot of the times in the Caribbean, corporate comes on to CSR initiatives to do beach cleanups. It's very popular, especially around ICC time. And we said, what about the harbor? Something that's so valuable to Jamaica, heavily polluted from all the cargo that passes through and, not given nearly enough attention. So we work on the harbor with fishermen to recover the plastic directly. And then through our education campaigns, I know this topic is the circular economy, which is about recovering waste, transforming it, or keeping it in a closed loop cycle. However, the message that we push more often is to actually cut back on plastics. So we have a program or a campaign, I should say, called, I'm going to say it in Jamaican dialect, patois. It's called Bring Your Own Things, which means bring your own things in standard English. So some people are familiar with bring your own cup, BYOC, if you're going to a friend's party. So we encourage the public to bring your own things, whether it be your water bottle, your thermos, your utensils is something people don't often think about when they grab a lunch. In Jamaica, you always get a single-use plastic fork wrapped in more plastic when you buy lunch on the road. And even containers, say you go for dinner and you have some leftovers, carry containers so that afterwards you can pack leftovers in your own container and you don't have to take an additional single-use container. So yeah, I know it's not realistic to imagine that plastic is going to completely disappear in the near future. However, in any small way we can, we encourage people to play their part. So those are two areas of work that we do. We do a lot more, honestly, but I'm speaking to what's relevant here. And something very new and exciting that we're launching this year is going to be Jamaica's very first local recycling facility. So the UK is steps ahead of us, you know. I'm not going to share any new innovative technologies that maybe people aren't familiar with already, because I know in the UK it's very typical to go outside and you separate your plastics, your glass, your metals, your paper, cardboard, organic waste, and then mixed waste. It was so refreshing when I was there for the 4 years to witness everyone follow rules so well, when in Jamaica we can barely get people to simply put their garbage in the bin. Littering is still a problem nationwide. And so, as I was saying, I'm not sharing anything new. However, it's very exciting for us because currently Jamaica collects HDPE and PET plastics, so just two types, through a national recycling program, which is actually run by the plastic producers, might I say. So they came together in 2019, just before the pandemic, and formed this organization where they're all on the board and they are leading the National Plastic Collection Program. However, they call themselves Recycling Partners of Jamaica. However, we don't actually recycle plastic in Jamaica. We simply export it to South and Central American countries who we're not even sure what exactly happens to it after that. So through resource recycling, which is our new project, we plan to shred, melt, and injection mold HDPE and PP, so that's type 2 and type 5 plastics, into new products such as sunglasses, coasters, tiles for hopefully Jamaica's hotels. Maybe the lobby, when you walk in, an entire wall could be tiled with recycled plastic locally made. So yeah, very exciting. We partnered with Indonesians who have already implemented these kind of manufacturing facilities, specifically in Bali. And we went over there, we got trained, and just fascinating to see the waste industry that exists and what we aspire to hopefully have one day in Jamaica. So that's a little background on what we do and we're hoping to do.
Thank you, Carla. Question, I guess, for both of you, but let's start with you, Carla. Recycling program, which is great. It's got a circular arm. I'll let you have that one. And you've got to start somewhere, which is really important. So absolutely good. What do you think about participation and quality and all the issues that in the West, certainly in the UK, David and I, we've had recycling over here since the 80s. We've kind of got to a certain point and we can't get any further. We've still got lots of bins that are full of the wrong material. There's a constant battle to overcome inertia or disinterest or ignorance, maybe. Are you worried about introducing recycling programs?
As it relates to Jamaicans' behaviors?
Well, the public in the UK aren't very good at getting it right all the time. So I'm assuming the Jamaicans won't be great at getting it right all the time as well.
Yes, I mean, we always say behavior change is not something that can happen overnight. We're not expecting that in the snap of a finger next year, everyone is suddenly going to be handing over their type 2 and type 5 plastics without any friction. But it's a work in progress. And the advantage of being a tiny island is that we're small. We can reach literally all parishes much more easily than a country like the UK can. So it's much easier to implement, say, a national pilot program and monitor it efficiently, understand our problems better because there's visibility island wide. It takes, I'd say, 4 hours to drive the full width, which is we're wider than we're taller. So that's the longest drive across the island. So that's an advantage. So
Yeah,
it's a work in progress.
that's cool. And Danny, it's a similar question, I guess. Is there a generational difference between the carnival goers when you started, 10 years ago maybe, or even before? I'm thinking the carnival goers when I used to go, to the younger crowd that are coming in now. Are they more environmentally conscious? Are they more interested in your program, or is it just across the board? Everybody wants to do this. It makes a lot of sense.
I feel like the curve was high in sustainability, low, and we're going back into high. So Carnival originally started off more sustainable. There wasn't this culture of throwing away the costume after a single use. People got together. It was a very much local, homegrown initiative or celebration where people created their costumes together in people's homes. They're called mass cams, and then each year they would reuse the costume pieces. Now, as Carnival became commercialized and became more of a tourism product that introduced foreigners, the private companies who made it were only thinking about how cheap can we create the costumes and how fast we can do it. And that's when we started, stopped creating most of the costumes locally, started outsourcing it to Chinese manufacturers. And, it's a business, so they're thinking about money versus sustainability. So where we come in is to bring back those sustainability practices, and we've done surveying throughout each carnival season, and we do notice with the younger generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, who are participating, they are more interested in renting and recycling. And amongst these crowds as well, we're seeing a lot of sustainability in other textile areas like thrifting. So there's a lot of thrift pop-ups now on our island, and we're seeing on other Caribbean islands as well. So it's better for us.
Fabulous. So I'm going to bring David in. We've heard about some recycling programs. We've got some reuse programs. There's some kind of leasing programs being developed. David, this is ticking your box, isn't it? This is the circular economy in action.
Yes, it is, Adam. I think it's really exciting. I'm just wondering, I might give people a little bit of an introduction to what circular economy is. Sorry, Circular Economy Institute, sorry. But also some of the things that's happening globally, and then address that question.
Please
So
do.
I'm gonna do a couple of slides. Adam and I used to have slide offs. I don't know if you have ever heard of a slide off. How many slides you can do in the short period of time? Adam won. I think he did 89 slides in about 15 minutes or something ridiculous like that.
I'm older now.
Huh?
I'm older and slower.
Exactly. So let me tell you very briefly about the Circular Economy Institute. It's a professional institute globally. And this is me. I've got far too many titles. If you're interested in what I do, have a look at me on LinkedIn and the like. But today I am here as the Vice President of the Circular Economy Institute. For those of you who don't know, the CEI, Global Network of Circular Economy Professionals. So everybody that's on here could potentially be part of this and should be potentially part of this. There's a little QR code in the bottom. We've just rebranded after 8 years of being the Circular Economy Club. And so I'm going to tell you a tiny little bit about that. But just before we do, there's a new membership. You can become a professional circular economist. Go onto the website. You can either sign up to become a circular economy trained practitioner, or fellow. And just to let you know, there are clubs around the world. Now, this map is deliberately not European focused, because one of the things that we're actually seeing globally in the circular economy space is that the rest of the world is taking the lead. We're seeing circular economy coming out through Asia. South America, Australasia, Africa are becoming some of the powerhouses of circular economy. Not from everything they're doing, but from their attitude. And circular economy for me is absolutely about attitude. It's about attitude, it's about buy-in. Now, alongside that, we have what is circular economy. This is my simplified version of what used to be called the waste hierarchy. And it's split into 3 phases. Stuff you can do before you use it, stuff you can do while you own it, and stuff that you can do when it no longer has a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh life. So when we're thinking about circular economy, think about, do I need something? Do I need to get something in the first place? Do I need to, if I'm going to get something, think about how I design it or how I buy it or how I consume it? Do I need to buy as much stuff as I need to? That's the behavioral change first element to start thinking about your consumption. Once it's there, i.e. the legacy world, the Anthropocene that we currently live in, let's work out how we can actually extend the life of everything that's already there. Danny and Carly have told you about loads of this. That is extending the lifetime of all the products and stock that is in this planet. Let's get that going for as long as possible. And then when we can't do anything about it, let's recycle it, and last resort is recovery. This isn't everything about the circular economy, but it is everything about material and resource management. So I use this, we present this a lot. There might be an 11 R's now, there might be a 12 R's, but it's all the R's, and it's about behavior change. It's about pre-use, use, and post-use. Now, what's been going on in England? I've just spent the last year working with government to create a circular economy growth plan for England. 15, 16 experts come together, work with government for a year to create what is going to be a new legislative document targeting 6 different sectors in the UK. There's lots of information online about it, and indeed yesterday they just launched a new advisory pack for mayoral authorities with changing government here. Adam, you'd be pleased to know one of Adam's projects up in Manchester is included, the Manchester Reuse Hub, and I think I had 4 of my projects on there as well. So that's really good, including a new industrial symbiosis hub that we're creating in the southeast of England. Circular economy is about getting on and doing things, and it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're doing. If you're talking, you're not doing. So for me, circular economy is absolutely about doing. On that note, I'm going to close my slides and come back to you so we've got full screen for all of our wonderful speakers, and then go to you, Adam. What was the question you asked?
I don't know. And to be honest, I don't care. We're just going to get into some more wider chat, mate. I mean, look, I think in England, and you could argue the UK, because Scotland and Wales have done something similar in their own way. But there's a lot of talk about policy. There's a lot of talk about regulatory reform and, you know, economic levers and taxes and all sorts, which is, you know, over here. But here we've got, you know, 2 brilliant women, initiatives that are flowing. It's all kind of like get stuck in. It's action. It's bottom up, not top down. Is the answer all of the above, or is it, you know, or is it just that we live in, you know, a terribly regulated world?
No, it has to be all of the above. We can't rely on one player, one stakeholder to do it. Adam knows me very well. I could have put 47 slides up quite easily. One of them would have shown how many circular economy strategies there are around the globe. 8 years ago, there was 3. There's now over 1,000. We need to have government-led activity. Now, I use the word activity very purposefully. Doesn't always need to be legislation. Doesn't actually need to be policy. A lot of it needs to be facilitatory. A lot of the work we've done in UK over the last decade has been how can you change procurement practices so that government is buying circular products, so refurbished products. If the UK government did a festival and wanted to buy clothing for a festival, we'd be coming straight to Danny because that's better from purchasing than buying refurbished. And government can change the way they buy, and that's such a powerful lever. But at the same time, we need innovators to come up with things that are better than traditional. And that's where Danny and Kalia come in. That's what we're doing with some of the stuff I do on Tech Take Back. So it has to be a blend of both. We have to have that bottom up aggravation and disruption with an element of strategic government led initiatives.
Okay, that's cool. So, Galia, question about, is there a national waste management strategy for Jamaica has come in? And I guess I'm linking back to the David point. We need some strategy or some enablement or some joined up thinking, usually with a top down approach that is supporting and enabling, driving the bottom up innovation. Has Jamaica got that balance?
Not, I wouldn't say so. So we have a national waste management entity who's very under-resourced. They've attempted to do their own plastic collection within very small communities, and that was without any push from the government. That's just, internal wants to see it happen in Jamaica. I think policy is very important, and not just policy, but enforcement, as well as some kind of coupled EPR network in place,
Funding.
because until corporate or, plastic producers, distributors feel some sort of pressure or obligation to play their part as well, then it's really just, us as individuals or small organizations in the case of Jamaica. So yeah, as David said, it's a multi-stakeholder approach, and it's also difficult to compete with the price of virgin plastic, or as Danny said, the Chinese costumes are much cheaper, so they've opted for that. We were consulting Jamaica Coffee Festival, who's executing an event next month, and they were asking for advice on how to execute the event more sustainably. We created a whole plan for them. And in the end, they said, this is looking really expensive. So we're not sure if we'll be able to do it. So how do we make it cheaper to be more sustainable? It's definitely a barrier.
No, good point. And don't worry, we suffer with exactly the same equation when I'm talking to big brands about becoming more circular. It's the step change cost that is often the barrier to innovation. Danny, question coming about the Caribbean islands in general. Are the hotels going down the zero waste initiative? It seems that in Italy and Slovenia, there's some great trials of zero waste hotels being green tourism, and is that something that we're seeing across the Caribbean, or is it an area that we might see in the Caribbean?
I cannot speak to the entire Caribbean, but I do know in Trinidad and Tobago there are a few hotels that have Green Key certification. So it's a certification for tourism bodies. I think it's a global certification. And so like Hyatt's Port of Spain Trinidad branch is Green Key certified, and then on the Tobago Islands, Carrywalk is certified as well, Carrywalk Hotel. And they're certified based on just initiatives like energy conservation, so retrofitting lights, sustainable use of the food that they may serve their guests. So I know Hyatt has initiatives where they grow some of their own lettuce and things like that that they serve to guests. And then Hyatt has actually done a lot. Like they have a team, so I know they try to recycle some of their water for washing, like for laundering services. So we have some initiatives from hotels and some hotels who have went through a certification process, but I can't speak to a hotel that's completely zero waste in Trinidad and Tobago.
Maybe there's an opportunity there. So thank you. Good question, by the way. Thank you for that, audience. If you've got any others, get them in the Q&A quickly, because we're into the last 18 minutes of this session already. David, big opportunity coming up. You'd like to think with, a circular economy growth strategy that's going to not only showcase the art of the possible with these exemplars that you've alluded to already, but also maybe help to get some of the barriers out of the way. If I was to ask you, which is the one barrier that you need removed to make circularity more normal, what would be the one barrier that you take your hammer to tomorrow? And ladies, be ready. I'm asking you the same question.
I don't think I could ever come down with one barrier. I think there are some very, and one of those is perception. Perception of the difference between virgin and secondary. We have a really, let's say, jaundiced view of secondary raw materials globally, I think. Well, less so globally. I say European and West. In the UK, it's cheaper to build a new house because there's no VAT on all the parts than it is to repair one. So having a disincentive to reuse is insane. But government is a very traditional linear mechanism, and therefore we have to break that barrier down. We have to break down the perception that new is not always good. In some cases it is, but not always.
Thank you. Dalia, what's the one barrier that you'd like me to knock over with a big dump truck sometime soon to make circularity fly in Jamaica?
That's difficult. For Jamaica, I think what we're lacking is the infrastructure. So, for example, there are countries who have informal waste because they may have, companies that clean the plastics only and send it off to someone who wants to process it. And so if you want to insert yourself somewhere, you can work with others who are already in the market.
Okay.
Whereas in Jamaica, there is no market around waste. We collect it and we actually dump it. We don't have landfills. So yeah, I would say the infrastructure and the systems to have a network of various people at various steps of the process, the circularity model to make there be less of a barrier for those who want to enter into the market.
So we need some infrastructure, and therefore, unfortunately, we're going to need some investment. Danny, what's your big barrier that I'm coming to smash over?
So for Trinidad and Tobago, I just want to access the resources that are available. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a green fund, tax fund, and businesses, when they pay their taxes, they pay into it. That fund is a huge pot of money. Guess who is not accessible to? Private companies. So it's only accessible for nonprofits, basically. But private companies are the ones who are leading and spearheading this initiative in our country. So there's just millions of dollars sitting there that cannot be accessed, and funding for startups and things are always an issue. So I would just love to be able to access a bit of the money that's available for these initiatives.
Good ask. I'm right behind you with my big sledgehammer. Some really good chat coming in for those of you that are watching the chat. Some great references to sources of information, ideas, templates, etc. I think one of the really important things that comes out of the Be Waste Wise platform and the webinars that we host is the connectivity of the audience. So, if you're making new friends, if you're, developing joint research initiatives, or you're just sharing best practice, you crack on, because, that made this hour all the more worthwhile. So thank you. Question, David, I'm going to start with you. Is circularity a threat to indigenous practices? Asks one of our more learned audience members today. I think this is a very, very interesting question, because if you look at all the points around the globe that don't have a lot of circularity activity, it is that because it kind of, there's a threat to indigenous practice, or is it a protectionist issue?
I don't think it is. I think it absolutely depends on what's indigenous practice we're talking about. There are some that are potentially exceptionally polluting, and in that case, they should be assessed as to whether or not they are the right practice. But you could say that quite a lot of the indigenous practice of the UK is incorrect.
Right.
Now, I know this is a global conversation. I think we have to see circularity as an opportunity to embed a better climate future for our future generations. And we have to assess that against what we're currently doing. And if we look at our indigenous practice and go, right, we're polluting all of our waterways and we're polluting all of our environment, then yes, that should be a threat to those practices, because that's not leaving our planet in the best place for the future. However, if there is a traditional practice that is absolutely sound and should be kept, then it should be kept. This shouldn't be a threat.
Good. I didn't think it was, but I thought it was an interesting question nonetheless. I'm going to give a big shout out to a good friend of mine who's known me almost as long as David, Anne Scheinberg, who I've worked with across many projects and a continent. She makes a really valid point here, which is try forcing the politicians to require citizens to pay the full cost of disposal of their wastes that are not suitable for any of the recycling, reprocessing, reuse and recovery activities. I think it's a very valid point. I think how do we see in the Caribbean the idea that, polluter pays or consumer pays or somebody pays? Because I think, Carla, you made the point about sort of the plastics group coming together to help with an extended producer responsibility scheme to get money into the system to get bottles back. I think in a lot of the places that I've worked, it was the local taxation or lack of that just meant municipal services were the bare minimum, and anything that was more complicated just fell on deaf ears. So the question is how do we get more money in the system, and what would the Jamaicans do if they were having to pay for their true waste management costs?
I'm sorry to be so pessimistic, but in Jamaica, we have a practice of dumping in our, we call it gullies, but it's actually it's a drainage system for stormwater or heavy rainfall. So our gullies are filled with garbage, and then when it rains, all the rainwater washes it out to sea. So there are some communities that don't have access to any waste collection as it is right now. So I think if people had to pay, they would find means of getting rid of their waste, such as illegal dumping, unfortunately. But I went on a program through the US Embassy, an IVLP program, International Visitor Leadership Program, and I forget what state we were in, but they did charge additional for the waste that wasn't separated, basically. So the normal mixed waste was what you got charged for, and once you separated it into organic, plastics, etc., then you didn't pay. So I thought that was a brilliant strategy. Just in certain communities in Jamaica, it wouldn't work, but maybe in more urban or developed areas, it would. So no, great point.
Okay, and Danny, a related point, deposit return schemes, the idea that you pay a 20 cents deposit on a bottle that you then get back when you put that bottle in the right piece of infrastructure, or bin or bag or box, or take it back to the shop or whatever. Is that something you're seeing starting to sprout up in the Caribbean? We know there are countries around the world, and I'm going to ask David because we're currently talking about rolling it out here now. But it used to be a thing. Everybody sort of had deposit return, and then it all kind of died a death. And I'm just wondering, is it getting a renaissance in the Caribbean?
Yeah, it is. Well, in Trinidad and Tobago, it's currently only operational in Trinidad. We have this private company who it's a partnership between Every Bottle Back, as well as Coca-Cola Company and a few others who are doing this deposit scheme for plastic bottles. And so it's really cool because they're doing it where um they have like key people, like people could sign up to go to different areas within Trinidad and collect the bottles, kind of this entrepreneurship thing. And then they'll get paid based off how much bottles that they come back with. Right now those bottles are not recycled, they're just exported. Speaking to Kalia, that we don't really have many true recycling initiative, but we do have one company called Glastic that does exactly what Esrom Foundation is seeking to do. So I think that I could connect you guys if you're not already connected. They've produced clocks, tiles, and so many and benches and stuff. And then the deposit scheme is something we eventually want to do with Carnicycle. Again, people spend lots of money on the costumes, and although the costumes is just a part of what the $1,000+ accounts for, when people throw it away, or the people who don't want to recycle it say it's because this is the only tangible thing I have left. So eventually baking in an incentive program for our program is what we want to do as well.
Thank you. And David, deposit return is quite prevalent around Europe. We're coming at it late, although you and I grew up in a society where it was prevalent. Certainly, that was my pocket money at weekends.
Yeah.
What's the thinking around deposit return in the UK now? Is it a game changer, or is it just another part of the jigsaw puzzle?
I think it's a game changer for a small proportion of the population, but for the majority, it's another part of the equation. It's an interesting one, deposit return schemes. As somebody that's worked in local government for 25 years, I'm not actually that much in favour of it.
No.
Because it's adding a new scheme in. We've actually got, even though it's not performing as well as it could, we've got one of the best collection systems for recycling in Europe.
Anyway.
We're introducing a new set of infrastructure to target a very small proportion of the material streams that we want. However, what we will get, hopefully, is some very high quality materials that can go straight back into high quality recycling. So it's part of the mix. It's an interesting one. I was in Holland Denmark earlier in the year, last year, and we were walking through the train station. They have, Adam and I are sad enough that we take photos of bins. I was walking through the station in Copenhagen, and there's a bin there with recycling, with food waste, with residual waste, and a little essentially ledge. And we're going, what's that for? And it was for Copenhagen residents to put deposit return bottles onto for somebody with less income to pick them up and to go and get the deposit return. And from a social point of view, from a social value point of view, that's just a different game-changing thought of, actually, I don't need to get the deposit return. Let somebody else go and get their pocket money like Adam did back in the 70s.
Right, we're into the last 5 minutes, so I'm going quick fire round. So get ready, okay? So the question is, Kalia, can we go circular when we live in a material-based capitalistic system? It's a yes or a no.
I saw that comment in the Q&A section. Was it Paul
Patrick.
Waters?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Patrick Waters, which I resonated with deeply because it's something I think about a lot. I think it will require change at a global level in some difficult areas. One of which is our economy, which I don't know if this is the answer you wanted. Oh no.
This is the fast round. This is the yes or the no. Come on.
No, I'm going to
No.
say
Danny, it's a yes or a no.
Read the question one more time.
By the way, my no was for perfect circularity worldwide. Of course, we
There,
can achieve it,
there is no perfect circularity. The question for you, Danny, is can we go
Yes,
circular in a materials-based
material
capitalistic
space.
system?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, David, yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, and then next follow-up question, how much sacrifice must we as society or individuals make to enable circularity? Lots or little? David, lots or little?
Little.
Ooh, optimist. Danny.
Also little.
Okay, optimists. Carlia. Oh, you've been a pessimist all session, so it's clearly lots.
It depends on how you view sacrifice, but I would agree with them little.
Oh, okay. Well, we're finishing on a high here. Okay, my final question, because you're entering the spirit of my quick fire round now, is are you optimistic about the progress that we're going to make on circular solutions in the next decade? It's very or not very. David, very or not very?
I'm going one word, very.
Of course you are, because that says it on the slide. Carlia, are you very optimistic or not very optimistic?
Could you repeat the question? It cut
How
off.
how optimistic are you about the progress we will make globally on circularity solutions and systems? Very optimistic, not very optimistic.
I think I'd be contradicting myself if I said very, so I'll say not very.
And the final word to you, Danny, very or not very?
Very.
Very. And we've got a few people commenting in the audience, little or not so little. Listen, you three have been fantastic. I always end a webinar, as Sweta knows, because she's posted about it on social media recently, with one question, and it's a very simple question. It's, I've got a hashtag. I want it on my T-shirt. I'm going to go and walk around the village in a minute with my dog. What does the hashtag say that summarizes everything you want to get out of this workshop? It's one hashtag. It's not a sentence. It's not a paragraph. It's a word. Carlia, what is your word? Hashtag.
One word.
It's tough. I tell you, I'm just harsh, aren't I?
Be waste wise in one word.
Hashtag be waste wise, Twitter. I love it. This one. You're on brand. Danny, what are we going with apart from promoting your company, which should be an NGO, by the way, according to the audience who are going, access the money, access the money.
Oh,
She didn't fancy answering my difficult question. I don't blame her. But I'm sure she would have gone hashtag follow my company. David, looks like you got the final word. Hashtag what exactly?
circularity rules.
Oh, I just about fit that across there, wouldn't I? Listen, you've been fantastic. Audience, lovely questions, great chat. Hopefully you're part of a community. Join up the dots and talk offline. I've really enjoyed myself. Hopefully that came through. I hope Danny's going to come back because Danny wanted a hashtag. Danny, you've come back. What is this hashtag?
Love.
Hashtag what?
Hashtag love.
Love.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Thank you for rejoining us. My hashtag would be hashtag collaboration because we're not going to solve this on our own. Sweta, back to you and thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. And I want to mention that we had hashtag collaboration in the audience before Adam mentioned it. We had like a couple of people saying it actually. So thank you, everyone. Thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to the audience. It was a great 1 hour. The recording will go up on our website and YouTube channel in a couple of weeks. So, all right. Have a good day, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you
Bye-bye.
later.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.